Excuse me. Can you make that clearer?
Look, he still can't hear.
That's about as clear as it's gonna get. It's just the map of North Riverside, Lyons, and McCook, and then for St. Pius, includes Stickney and Forest View. So in this scenario, it's scenario 1A, that it would be one parish, and we would keep all 4 campuses open, all 4 sets of buildings open, with one pastor. Now, if there would be addition, like an associate or anything else, that's not determined yet, but it would have to get one pastor for our 4 communities and 4 sets of buildings. Right, we would have 4 worship sets. Right, St. Mary would be the administrative hub, so all of the records would come from St. Mary's. So this is the new scenario. Scenario 1B is one parish, 3 churches. All 4 parishes unite to form a new united parish. St. Mary, Mater Christi, and St. Pius X churches will continue to hold regular Sunday masses. St. Hugh would cease regularly scheduled masses and move toward formal closure. St. Mary would serve as the administration center for the united parish and formally be designated as the parish church. So this is just another map that we saw earlier. And this one again, it shows Mater Christi North Riverside, St. Mary Riverside, and St. Hugh covering Lyons and Cook. And then it shows that St. Pius X, which covers Stickney and Forest View, would begin the process again in discernment with the Berwyn area churches. So they would have to go through the process over again. And in this scenario, the 3 churches that would stay and become one parish would be St. Mary, St. Hugh, and Mater Christi. We would unite to one parish, keeping all 3 churches open. Again, one pastor, St. Mary, would be the administrative hub, and then St. Pius X would move and towards the circuit again with the Berwyn churches.
But the masses would be different.
Excuse me?
The masses in the churches
They would have at least one mass per church. The pastor would set the worship schedule.
But that is unclear now.
We don't, right.
You know, it's also the police situation. We don't know how they're going to allocate police with this. It's all, you know.
Okay.
They can't hear it all, the Facebook Live.
The what?
The Facebook Live, they can't hear.
They
Like,
can't hear me?
Yeah, they said, like, I got closer, and it was, like, really echoey, and but they still can't really hear. But they can hear when I'm closest. Try with the mic. I don't know if that's any better. But they said it just sounded really echoey.
So I'm gonna just wait until she gets the mic.
You know, some of the scenarios, actually most of them, they're very hypothetical. And they only are counting to the most important seats. They cannot say everything yet. That's why we're listening to, you know, so we can get more information.
So scenario 2B is one parish with 2 churches being open, and St. Pius X joins the grouping in Berwyn. So parish, it would be St. Hugh, St. Mary, and Mater Christi unite as one parish. St. Mary and Mater Christi churches would both be used for regularly scheduled masses, and St. Hugh would cease regularly scheduled masses and move toward formal closure. St. Mary would serve as the administrative center for the United Parish and would be formally designated as a parish church. So then again, St. Pius goes to Stickney and Berwyn. The 3 of us join together, we close, and then become one community, one parish. So we don't know yet. Well, when we get to that part of it, we'll let you know what we know. So parish scenario 3 is 2 parishes. St. Mary and Mater Christi join to become one parish,
with one pastor?
Each parish could get a pastor. So in that scenario,
Well, it's unclear because it can only be one pastor for the whole umbrella, usually.
well, if it's the same you and St. Pius, they could get a pastor. They're one parish, and then that's at least what they're saying.
That's the day but I will place in each parish of some sort.
It's something. Just to interject, can I just say something? St. Pius is currently without a pastor right now because Pastor Marcus retired recently. So now Father Tom May at St. Mary's is actually pastoring over at St. Pius X as well as St. Mary's, just to let you know. So that would mean that if that were, if hypothetical, if that was to happen where we combine
That
the
doesn't change.
right,
Right,
that you would be the pastor.
we would join the pastor pool.
Right.
When Father Reza left and Father Robert came
Right.
and Father Bob left, we would go into the pastor pool. Each of the pastors would decide if they wanted to stay or go, like they do every other time.
Right.
And then they would be assigned based on the needs. It depends on what the scenario comes out to. We won't know that until later on.
Whenever
So,
someone
that's
talks, they need to speak into the mic or else they can't hear on Facebook.
Thank you.
So when right now it's saying take a minute or two to think about it, and then we'll go around. We're gonna sanitize the mic. Can they hear me with the mic?
It was. They said it was better with the mic.
Okay, so we're gonna leave the other mic so that way we can kind of go around.
I don't know, Father.
If anybody has anything to say, that way we can sanitize between them.
Christine.
So if anybody has anything, so if you have comments about a particular scenario, please say your name. Let's start with just the first scenario, just 1A, that way it's easier to take notes. So we'll start with the 1A, which is all 4 become one parish, no buildings closed. Okay? So 1A, if you have any comments about the strengths or the weaknesses, challenges, the word we keep saying, these challenges, the strengths, or the challenges for that scenario, please raise your hand and then we'll come around and bring you the mic and then we'll just sanitize it between everybody. So does anybody have any comments on 1 parish, 4 churches, all staying open? You probably need to be heard. Please just state your name, Mary.
Mary, is that good enough? You know, I don't want to be negative. But that first option just seems to be almost the same as things are now. I understand there would probably be maybe one pastor over all 4 parish buildings, but it seems like there would be too much changes. And that's what I would think that the committee would end up deciding too. But I know nothing's been decided, but that's my initial feeling on that scenario.
Anybody else have any comments about scenario 1A?
My name is Connie, and I'm confused about what you said because it would be different with the masses and the pastor.
Right, so when a pastor comes, he gets to set the Passover, right? So a pastor could decide that if all 4 remain open, St. Pius gets 1 mass, St. Hugh gets 2, Mater Christi gets 3, St. Mary gets 4, or everybody gets 1. He gets to decide based on, I'm guessing, how much help he has. That's a huge factor. If there's an associate, if there's a resident. Also, as well as, like here we have the Commonies, are they going to be able to continue helping? I know in St. Mary's, they have a list of priests that they go through that help there. Every parish kind of has a group of priests that they use as extra coverage. So that would be a huge factor in determining what the schedule would be. But the pastor ultimately would get to decide it. And so we wouldn't know about a pastor until just March, April.
So they would not pick.
Yeah, we should know the name usually.
Okay, and so the pastor would
Will
have.
you ask
to
the
come
question that someone left a comment for?
now, and we would all go into that.
Right, so we wouldn't know until the pastor was assigned, and then let us know what he was gonna do. And ultimately, he's gonna need a little bit of time to figure out what he can do based on once he figures out the situation and what the help is.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments?
There's some Facebook comments.
Oh, here's those, so just go right.
Okay.
So Marge and Twistle Cleveland asked, since when and who put in those two red scenarios?
So, long story short, the initial scenarios were presented prior to having the facilities reports for all the parishes. Because of COVID, they weren't able to get the scenario or the facility reports out before the scenarios were presented. So once they got the facility reports, then the determination was made that based on what the numbers were at each parish, that our numbers were significantly higher than everywhere else. And again, is it fiscally responsible? Prudent, I think was the word that they used, to start a brand new parish. We all needed work. Every parish has a lot of dollars that need work. But being one of the older parishes, we obviously needed more than some of the others. Due to certain financial circumstances, we haven't been able to necessarily do things. We're kind of more in when something breaks, then we fix it. We're not out ahead of the game. So that's the situation we're in. So once those reports came back, they had to reevaluate it. And that's when we got into the scenarios in red, just so that they could be noticed as they're the new ones. That's
They would have had like 10 years ahead at least.
right.
They're very conservative on what they're going to see in each parish. So it's not that we are bad now, but we will need lots of help, lots of funds to kind of make everything great.
Right. They projected, I think it was 2 to 7 years. That was one of the reports.
Yes.
I think it was what needs to be done in year 2 and year 3. They had it all lined out. Anything else? We'll just keep the Facebooks on.
Teresa Mendez says, no to any that suggest closing St. Hugh.
Oh, do you see it?
Thank you.
And then Mark Cleveland says, couldn't we sell some of our buildings but keep our beautiful church? Couldn't we sell some of our buildings but keep our beautiful church?
So on there, that was something Father suggested, that the potential is to sell the gym, the hall, whatever other auxiliary buildings, so that we would have funds, because this building is the one that needs the most work. So to put the money into this, but again, they won't decide that, because again, is it fiscally responsible for a new parish?
Talking to the mic more.
So that's part of the decision that they're going to have to kind of look at. Father did put it on the table that selling buildings is an option. But again, it's looked at as a whole picture, because the other parishes could do the same thing, that have buildings that aren't being used. Meryl?
I'm Marilyn.
In this scenario,
Which one?
the collection,
Okay.
yeah, with all 4 parishes staying open, one pastor, which would be the pastor at St. Mary's, would all the collections from the other parishes all go there, and he's doling it out as to how he wishes?
So as one parish, yes, we would all do, if we're all worship sites, all open, we would each continue to do our regular collections, say, whatever it is, who knows what the new name of the new church is, because we will get a new name. Each building will maintain its name, but the parish, remember we said the parish is the people, and the church is the building. The church will stay St. Hugh, but the new parish will get the money, so it'll be one bank account all the collections will be there, and then the pastor of the collective 4 church buildings, 1 parish, will decide how the money gets spent.
That's a good question.
Shirley Coach?
I didn't speak very well. I was proud of it. I think that first of all, what's going to happen with Father King's trust against us?
So the years have had to use that money to cover expenses. If you watch the bulletin every year's annual report, it has gone down year after year after year because when we lost the West 40 lease, we didn't have enough money to make it month to month, year to year, and so that did get used to cover. It was every year's annual report for the last, I don't know how many years it's been.
Saying that Father King's trust is being used for this.
Well, it was on there as the endowment, and then there's a balance every year of the endowment.
And how much is left of it now?
Off the top of my head, I don't know off the top of my head because it's fluctuated, it's gone up and down because the market. The market, I mean, in 1 year, I will tell you, I remember, I think it was like 5 years ago, we lost $30,000 on it in 1 year because of the market.
That's right.
So, I don't know, because I haven't looked at the bank statements in the last week.
Well, I think we need to know how much money St. Hughes has, including his endowment. And if we're all going to combine, I see that St. Mary's is smaller than us as far as space goes. Of all 4 churches, we might be able to go to 1925. We are the most beautiful. Look at our glass ceilings. Look at, so the work has to be done. But this is an absolutely gorgeous church. And we would welcome the Hispanic population that comes in Spanish masses and stuff. I really believe that we can grow again and be, when I look at all these scenarios, A1, A2, and A2, keeping 3 churches open, we just said it's going to cost $700,000 per church. That is ridiculous. But I don't understand why St. Mary should be our administrative church. Who made that decision?
That's only a scenario.
It's a scenario.
You have to be.
No,
But that's what I said.
that's the scenario. The scenario puts St. Mary as the administrative hub.
I believe there's diocese.
You need to talk into the microphone.
I believe that Archdiocese puts St. Mary's a little bit higher because they are in a better financial situation than the 3 of us. That's how they operate. It wasn't, my decision.
Okay, I totally disagree. I don't care just about money. I care about the parishioners who go here.
Mm-hmm.
And when they have the school now, if you become part of them,
Mm-hmm.
we have these 3 children on our block who went to St. Mary's because Robinson School is closed. Now, if there wasn't room in St. Mary's, would our kids not be able to go there because St. Mary would have priority because it's a church? I'm thinking of our kids all go up here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not real gung-ho in joining without the input of our parishioners, a church where we do have some money.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are to let one church be responsible.
That's why we have more scenarios.
They have more money, it's just like we're doing like in politics, they have so much money, so they just get away and we will get out.
See, we are not going to solve this tonight. The cardinal will make the final decision, but he can hear your voice.
Well, I wanted to, because I have a couple more things to do.
Sure.
Fathers of trust, the other thing is we really became part of St. Mary's, that our children have equal opportunity, not to be put on a waiting list, but to go to school there as well as.
We would be one parish, so say we come to Saint A, whatever. We would, and that would be Saint A school, so it would be the same. We would be one big parish, and we would all have the same equal footing to go to the
And
school.
it will be written so that we all understand it.
I suppose, I don't know, is it written somewhere?
It can be otherwise. One parish.
Right. It would be one parish. So, I don't know, does St. Mary's have a thing written right now that says only St. Mary's has priority?
But I think we need to think in the next few years as more children are going to private schools. If we're all together, it's fine with me. But I want to have as much opportunity for my grandchildren to go to St. Mary's as a parish school
there's a bunch of Facebook questions.
Okay.
I think this scenario where say 4 churches stay open, 3 churches stay open, is financially not feasible. I think when you try to push these down, then you're talking 700,000 to keep this church open and keep it during this year. I think we have to get realistic. But me, because I love St. Hughes, of all 4 churches, you're the most beautiful. And I pray that if someone will fight over it, I think they're going to stand. I love St. Hughes. I love us.
But I can't
And
remember.
this year,
But it's
leaders, not just this year, but the last 2 years. The Spanish
St.
people
Mary's
have
is
Spanish, we have everything. We have to do more right now. I'm sorry, that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Okay,
We have some Facebook comments.
So Marge and Twistle Cleveland asked the same thing about if you were that you put on a wait list. Teresa Mendez asked, will our groups, the SCW, spread, etc., and religious education classes remain separate?
So we only know what has happened at other churches. I know, like in the where St. Barb joined with St. Louise, I believe their women's group remain, they keep their own women's group. Obviously, they have to run the calendars against each other. They still are running separate religious eds. So it would be, again, dependent on the pastor. The pastor is the ultimate deciding factor in most anything. If he says, no, I want one women's group, then it becomes one women's group. If he says, no, look, if we have 2 strong, flourishing women's groups, or 4 or 3, whatever it is, let them run, then he can choose to let them run. Religious ed, again, we don't know. In some places they are combining them, but say offering 1 day of the week at one site and another day of the week at the other site. Because obviously it's one parish, one DRE, and they can't be in 2 locations at once. So it's varied from parish to parish, and ultimately the pastor is the deciding factor in how it runs because he's the pastor. Canonically, that's his job, his role, his decision to make.
Eileen Coca said, we should have been doing drive-through communion like St. Mary's does. The collection basket is always full.
It's always full.
Could you take your mask off?
Oh, sure.
To hear you better?
It was Riverside. And what
Eileen Coca commented, we should have been doing drive-through communion like St. Mary's does. The collection basket is always full. Okay, Tina Melendez asked, how can we continue to grow if we can't serve the community that we're in?
So that has come up in our feedback meetings that we did suggest that in any combination, in any of these 5 scenarios, we recognized it before we even had scenarios, that the community was changing and that the Hispanic community was not being brought in, that we were sending people to St. Cletus and St. Barb's for Spanish, not just Spanish Mass, but Spanish ministry. Because it's not, you can have a Spanish Mass, but it's not just about a Mass, it's about so much more. And so that did come up from the very beginning of our meetings, and that needed to be kind of in whatever the new parish or parishes looks like, that is something that they have to make sure is the focus of the new pastor, that he sees that is a community that we need to, hear and invite in better.
Tina Melendez commented, our school district is 71% Hispanic. It includes us and St. Pius, and neither of our parishes was given what we need to minister to the community. We were in the 60% range when Father Tom left. I told Bishop Mans then, and we asked for a Spanish-speaking priest then.
Okay, maybe I can answer that.
Okay.
The problem with the Hispanic priests, I think we just don't have as many as we used to have. And you see, English is my second language, and my first language is not Spanish. So, and it's not just language, it's a ministry. But with St. Pius, I think Father Ricardo is now there. And if we were with them in the alliance of one parish in the future, we could do something more about it. Because, I think he's from Mexico. So he Spanish. So it's a hard thing lately. We used to have more ethnic priests, quote unquote. We used to have more Polish or Hispanic priests, but not anymore. You know, I'm one of few Polish that came years ago, and we don't have any more seminarians coming from Poland because they don't have vocations like they used to have. And probably same with Mexico or other countries that speak Spanish. So it can be a little challenge, but you know, St. Pius looks like they could help us, and they can also help themselves to be more welcoming in that department in the future.
Georgina Lee asked, what about bringing back bingo?
I would say bingo really was, when it's finished, it really was, bingo never made money in the end. The poll tabs are what made the money, and even that was on the decline, and the problem with that was the amount of volunteers needed to run the bingo. I mean, we see who the volunteers are at church, and it's the same people in multiple positions, so that is kind of, we wore our bingo people out. If we had a school, then maybe we would have a fresh recruit of volunteers in, but that's not the case. But bingo really was not making money. Bingo didn't make money with the pull tabs. You had to have bingo to have pull tabs, so that's not really going to help.
Tina Melendez commented, well, we never really had a fair shot, did we?
Well, we never really had a fair shot. We'll write it down.
Yes, my name is Naomi Kovich. I've seen this in Chicago when they combined 4 or 5 parishes together. Within 3 years, the smaller parishes were just gone. They closed their buildings, they closed their churches, their groups, CCW, etc. It was just gone. I think our best hope is the last one. I think we combined with St. Pius and Mount Christi and St. Mary's stay together. I think that would be our best hope for both St. Pius and St. Hugh staying open. That's my opinion.
No, and we will write it down, and that's ultimately all we're doing is taking all your notes and bringing them back, because again, all we're doing is writing up all of our opinions, all of your opinions, and then they get presented to this executive committee who presents to the presidential council, who makes the recommendation to the cardinal, who ultimately makes the decision. So,
Yeah, just going along with what you said. Just going along with what you said, are we able to offer as a group what we think it would be the best scenario for St. Hugh's moving forward?
We can say what we want, but it doesn't, we don't get a vote. You can write letters, you can, email, whatever, however, if you want to go to the website and find, you can say, but ultimately this isn't a voting process as much as we might like to think it could be, but it's not. We can just voice our opinions and share as much information as we can, and ultimately we have to just as see what the cardinal decides.
So if we went out in front of the...
I think what Mary's saying, if people here would kind of make their best choice.
Right, if you would like to, you can let us know. After the meeting is over, we'll let you know ways to let us know what your maybe best choice that you think is, and then we can, keep a tally and whatnot and share that with the committee, who then will go to the writing team, and then they'll have that data to present.
So you don't think it would help any if many of us showed up at the next meeting and we held signs?
You know what? I don't know if it's good. I think everybody needs to do what they feel they need to do. The point of this, right now, is to inform you all what's happening, to get your feedback, and then we just have to, you can all voice your opinion, and our job is to share your voice, and if that that's how you choose to share your voice, then do it, and we're gonna report it back.
No, what I'm saying though, seriously, where is the next meeting where the representatives from the Irish?
We're not meeting in person.
Oh,
We're
you're
meeting
not.
all online.
Everything's
all
online. Okay.
Sorry.
All right, that's okay then.
No, and that's why I'm
Be there.
saying if you would want to write letters,
Yeah.
I mean, that's really kind of the only, I guess, because again, we're not meeting in person, you can't show up in droves outside of a meeting place. Because there is no place, we're all in our homes. And Father's place in his office. So okay, I think we've kind of wrapped up 1A.
Just two more comments.
Okay. We're gonna keep going.
Tina Melendez commented, our community still will not be served, nor St. Pius. And then Marge Cleveland said, I think no matter what we say, the Archdiocese does what it wants anyway.
That's the truth.
Okay. So is everybody content with scenario 1A that we've... So scenario 1B is the same, except this church building would close. So again, strengths, challenges in that scenario. Hands up if you have.
I don't like it.
I'm sorry, that was for
That was 1B, where all four become one parish and our building closes. Okay.
me personally.
Hi, my name is Celeste, if I can comment. Can you show the map for the parishes? I guess I'm just kind of confused because we cover the most space because we have Lyons and McCook. Why would members of Lyons and McCook go to like Riverside if there are other parishes closed? Like, why would we close when we have the most area?
We are the only church in Lyons.
Yeah, we're the only church in Lyons. And yeah, so we're covering the most space. So I guess to me it just seems like it would be best suited to invest in our church because we cover the most space. Kind of. Just a thought.
I would have to say yes, we cover the most ground. And we're going to take that note back to the feedback committee. Any other comments about 1B? Marilyn? Sorry.
Maybe I can yell loud now. With this scenario, my question would be, would we be told, hey, you go to this parish or that parish or the other parish? Or do we have a choice of which ones we want to move to?
Okay, so in that scenario, you could choose to worship in any church building. So you might want to pick it based on the Mass time. You might want to pick it based on this is the community, you know people. I mean, it would be completely up to you. In any scenario that we close, it was noted that there would have to be radical hospitality because we would have to find a new building because we're all becoming a new parish, so we all have to be, there would have to be radical hospitality to be welcoming and inviting us in because, again, look around, a lot of these are the same people that we see at events helping out and helping, and we all have roles that we play in this parish. And we want to probably go to whatever the new parish is and have roles. And it was noted on one of the things that I read when it came out that is something that they would have to consider. So they are aware of it, but we would get to pick which church building we get to worship at. Anything on Facebook?
Yeah, please.
This wasn't specific for 1B. This was about I think you mentioned online meetings with Archdiocese representation. And Georgina Lee asked, can we join those meetings as parishioners?
No, those meetings are specifically, because if it was a matter of who could have have the most numbers at a meeting, then it would be crazy to get through at all of the things that we have to get through. So that was why we had to pick, every parish got to pick 5 people plus the pastor. In the case of when there's schools, they get the principal. But because St. Mary's is the only school, they didn't take an extra person. So we all are equally represented with 6 people at the meetings. This was the parish opportunity to, like this meeting and then the last meeting we had last month was to gather your feedback and bring it back to them.
This is a comment for me, Celeste. So is there a way, so let's say after this meeting tomorrow, I have a thought about the scenarios. Is there a way that I can tell you my thoughts so you can take at me?
If you would like to call the rectory, all calls, if you push 2, go to Father. If you push 1, they come right to my cell phone, so if I'm not sitting at my desk, push 1. Also, there's an online form that I emailed out with the email with the scenarios. It's a little bit further down because I did put, there's a lot of information, but there is an online form where you can choose to leave your name or not leave your name if you want it to be anonymous or not, and that you can provide feedback. You can also, if you want to handwrite something out, throw it in the collection, and we will make sure that our reporters get that information so that they can report it, then we will report it back at our next meeting, and then ultimately Sue is on the team, so she would be the one that would make sure that all of our comments in the end, show up on this final document.
Okay. This is my own question. My name is Jacqueline Alfred. So basically the suggestion, since nothing is set in stone, to close St. Hugh in this scenario or the other closure scenario, that's strictly based, for lack of better words, that we're poor. Because if we cover geographically more area than the other churches, and we don't have the lowest capacity, it wouldn't make sense to me because we're serving more than other people may be. So the only consideration in that is that we have less money. That can be a comment if you don't have an answer. That's up to you. But yeah, it could be assumed or inferred that it is because we have the least amount of money.
And the most prepared leader.
Okay, so they just care about money. That's it.
Future projected by the diocese, and we have to double the number of their recording.
Okay. No further comments.
That's why I asked to look at selling the gym. So
Yes.
Certain standards.
Georgina Lee asked, when is the next meeting?
So we have another one of these for tomorrow, obviously, we talked about that, we have the 2. And then our next meeting is October 28th. So if you have any comments, suggestions, concerns, please get them to us by like Monday, Tuesday of that week. That way we have a chance to gather them together, and because if there are a lot of the same ones, we want to be able to say, especially the ones that multiple people talked on, we want to kind of tally them up, and then our job is to be your voice in these meetings. That's why this is so important. We are here to hear you so that your voices are heard in the larger, in the group, so that ultimately when it gets up above our heads, the cardinal has your voice. He knows what you said. Rosemary?
Now I think I forgot what I was going to ask. Okay. Obviously no one's brought this up, but there is some sort of a culture difference between St. Mary's, Mater Christi, St. Hugh's, and Pius X. I was wondering if there has been any feedback when you go to these meetings in that regard about that. Or are we going to it being ignored or that. Because St. Hughes is a great parish. I mean, there's humility.
Rosemary
there's
will
honesty.
speak to that one, because that was somebody else's talking besides me. Rosemary will answer that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think that it has come up on several occasions, the difference in demographics as well as cultural, we're, close geographically, but we do differ in other ways. And that has come up that we do need to address that and take that into consideration.
Hi, I'm Celeste. My question is, so the Archdiocese is assuming that we would go to another church within this grouping, correct? That's just what I'm wondering.
Overall, yes, but they know that some people may not.
Okay.
They know that not everybody will.
Okay, I was just assuming. I'm wondering.
They also recognize that some people it was right in our FAQs, I think, that they said that they realized that some people might stop for a time or indefinitely even coming to church because of, they recognize that this is a huge loss that needs to be grieved and needs to be mourned. If that's the situation, yeah, like I said, we don't know. But they realize that everybody may or may not, come back to one of these or at all. So anything else? Anybody else next?
I'll just say, at least going along with what Christine just said. I was talking to a retired priest this morning who has gone through Renew My Church. And I asked him if he had any suggestions, and all he told me was Beatitude number 10. I go, Beatitude number 10? He goes, yes. Blessed are the flexible, because they will be able to bend.
So what is it? Beatitude number 10, be flexible.
Blessed are those who are flexible.
Blessed are those who are flexible.
So they are able to bend.
I'm sorry?
So they are able to bend.
That they're able to bend. Thank you, Mary. Okay, so 2A, again, was the Mater Christi, St. Hugh, St. Mary become one parish, all buildings open. St. Pius X has to rediscern with Berwyn Cicero. Any strengths, challenges, anyone wants to share about that scenario? I know my one thing that I commented was, who wants to do this once, let alone twice? That was my kind of take that, it's rough enough to have to do it the first time. And we've known that this was our group for 3 years now, and they didn't know that, and now they have to start over with the group that they don't haven't had 3 years to kind of get to know. Anybody else have any?
Eileen Coco commented, when I attended all the St. Barbara meetings, it was emphasized that besides for funding, the lack of priests due to retirement and the lack of men entering the priesthood is just as big a factor in this.
Absolutely. That's where they came up with 800 for that mass number. They looked at the number of priests, wasn't it like 15, 20 years out, Father? And said, this is how many priests that we're going to have. And so this is how many people we need at each priest, each pastor. But it's like 60. So they looked at the priests years out and said they're good.
I'm in the minority. Only few people who are priests in Chicago and are my age, just few.
So that's how they came up with this magic 800 number, was looking ahead to how many priests we would have, and I don't remember the exact number, but it was like 15, 20 years out, because every year more priests are dying than we're ordaining. So it's a problem.
And there is, I think I mentioned in the beginning, we used to have seminaries coming from Poland and Mexico, and that is not the case anymore. So we don't have local vocations entering seminary or trying. They
Okay, so 2B,
Sorry, I just thought of something. Just like in regards to this scenario, oh, my name is Jackie, sorry. But in regards to this scenario, so for like Pius to leave, I don't know, it just doesn't seem that beneficial to us even. Not that like it's only for like our benefit, but as we've already discussed, I mean, if they're looking at closing us, obviously if you look at the 3 churches that would be left, we'd be at the bottom per se, and I don't think that's beneficial to us because then we could be looking at losing our vitality as a parish just within that 3, because our groups may be seen as less, or even combined we might lose our spots as volunteers or whatever. Even if our church does stay open, just as like an overhead like presence, it might be bad for us.
2B is again St. Pius discerns with Cicero and Berwin. The other 3 communities form to join one parish, and St. Hugh closes. Strengths, weaknesses, questions, comments, concerns. Hands, if you have anything. Two B was the 3, we all combined, Mater Christi, St. Mary, and St. Hugh combined. Our church, St. Hugh Church building closes, and then St. Pius X rediscerns with Berwin and Cicero.
That makes sense to me. I mean, if they're gonna be,
Give her the
Mary can't stay home.
I mean, if we say you can't stay open, and I'm sure we're going to be praying a lot, it just seems that Martyr Christi, and is that the right way?
St. Pius is the one that we discern.
Oh, and we would be with
Mater Christi and St. Mary. So the 3 on this side, like, we would become one, and St. Pius would start over again with Berwin and Cicero.
Well, you know, I guess we'd have to see. I think it would be very difficult, be challenging. I don't know, like St. Hugh's is the only parish in this area, so where else would everybody go?
Again, that's going to be a personal choice.
So that,
it's a personal choice.
exactly, so there's a lot of options with that. I don't know. I don't see it particularly working out, but if it was the only choice, then I would say at least 50% of this parish would probably do that. I don't know. We haven't. Father, what is our demographics here as far as our aging population, the younger families and all that? Do we?
Before pandemic, if you look at 10:30 Mass on Sunday, that Mass actually was becoming more and more young families and expanding due to also the religious ed that was coming to our 10:30 with their parents if they could. So that Mass was, I think, mostly Hispanic, or at least half. 4 p.m. is usually people who can hear longer, so it's the originals, we can say, the originals. And then 8 a.m. Usually the originals, mostly, and some mixture of people. But I don't know if we can say if parishes have right now, I don't know, I would have to look. But we have a large population of Hispanic people already.
So, going along with the originals, how many originals are here? I'd like to know if St. Hugh's closes, what do you think you would do?
Go to St. Daniel Prophet.
I'm going to St. John.
She said, I will convert.
How many of you will go to any of the parish in the grouping if St. Hugh would close? How many? 2 people?
That's my parish.
So minority, it looks like. And I'm
we have some progenitor illumination. I hope not.
Okay.
We got a comment.
Let's skip to the Facebook and then.
It's just a comment. Tina Melendez commented, perhaps we can brainstorm with St. Pius.
I think if you're gonna put St. Pius in with the Berwyn Cicero group, and you're gonna close St. Hugh, you're gonna create a desert like you were speaking of, because St. Pius does not have a school, St. Leonard does. There's no way they're gonna close St. Leonard. So that means closing St. Pius. So if you close St. Pius and you close St. Hugh, there's a problem.
Any other comments on scenario 2B?
Georgina Lee asked, when would we close if it does happen?
Okay, so the fiscal year ends June 30th. So the new parish would become into existence following all prior waves on July 1st of 2021. Now, in my breakout room, and Olivia was in my breakout room this past week, Wednesday, the accompaniment person that they have a staff person who accompanies the parishes through this process said that if it's decided that a church building closes, they don't close immediately on July 1. There is some time. They will continue masses again based on whatever the new pastor, because we would still become part of whatever parish situation that it's going to be. So if it's 1A or 1B, it'd be closed. Whoever the pastor of that scenario is would decide what our mass schedule is. We would continue that mass schedule through, she said, about to the end of ordinary time, which usually ends right, Advent starts usually that Sunday right after Thanksgiving. And towards the end of that, there would be ceremonies and services. And in other parishes, I've seen it on Facebook, they have these beautiful parades where they take the statues and move them to the other church buildings so that you see yours, things that you have in the other buildings. But ultimately, there's no, say, fixed date, but it would not be immediate. You would have a few months to finish, up things here. And usually it's right around the end of ordinary time that it wraps up. So that the first Sunday of Advent, it's kind of all done.
But it's not going to be the first Sunday of Advent.
No,
But it will be farther than June or July.
Right. There's no date in particular. It's just that's kind of how it works. A lot of it is, again, dependent on the pastor and the community. And I think, this accompaniment person helps, I think, even the new pastor help discern this based on the needs of the people in the community that's buildings are being closed. I think, so that's how she understands it to Olivia. Yeah, so. Anybody else? Questions on 2B comments? So the third scenario is Mater Christi and St. Mary unite to form one parish, and St. Hugh and St. Pius unite to form a separate parish. Just a caveat on that, there was a note, and it's not necessarily a for sure given thing. They were stating that if that was the scenario, that they are looking at the possibility of there being one administrator. There would be two separate pastors, but one administrative and operational staff, meaning my title is business manager, but now in many of these bigger, larger parishes, they need somebody bigger than that, higher than that. So they're calling them director of operations. So there would be that person and then a head facilities person. So there would be this core team up at the top. Right, who report back to the pastor on, do you know what I mean? And then there would be the normal people at the parish. So but we did say, and many people in our feedback team did say that does pose a problem, though I do know based on my business manager meetings that there are business managers who work across multiple sites. So it's not a new and unheard of thing. So any questions, comments, strengths, challenges on scenario 3?
If that caveat, is that the word? I don't know what you said. So where there's a director of operations, as you said, would that be based out of Mary's?
No.
Well, it depends.
Or is that not stated?
It depends.
Okay.
We have offices at both, but if we would share whatever parish A is in parish B, they would have offices in both.
Okay.
Or we could do two very similar parishes.
Okay, I was just wondering.
There is
Thank
no
you.
again based on the pastor.
Yes, there's an option that will be just with the St. Pius Church in that group.
Anybody else have any challenges, strengths of that?
I have a question. Hi, I'm Celeste. I have a question about that scenario. So, in that split, are the demographics of kind of those parishes more similar? Because it seems like we'd be more similar to St. Pius than to Monte Christi or St. Mary.
Very much so. St. Pius is probably a little bit more, I think, Hispanic than Lyons McCook is. I think Lyons McCook has a close match to it, but I think we have some of like other categories where we have, people of even other religions, where there are lots of Muslim families, African American families who are moving into the area. So I think we're a little bit, we have that extra piece that I don't know that Stickney and Forest View is as diverse. It's not a big, it's not, but we definitely are more closely matched in that way. And we share a school district where I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is North Riverside and Riverside share a school district? North Riverside and Riverside, do they share a school district? No. They do? Yes. Yeah, so we So there is that we do share the school, and I do believe though, that Monte Christi is probably, if you had to they maybe are a little bit kind of more similar to us in the makeup of the people, but maybe more probably a little maybe closer. I don't know, I don't have their demographics in front of me, but I do know for sure that St. Pius's area of coverage and our area, our boundaries, we are much more culturally similar than with the other two, and I believe they are much more culturally similar. So in that regard, does that answer that question? Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have anything on the third, any of these challenges, strengths? Because remember, anything you give us, the more feedback we have, then that's just more that needs to be looked at, considered, and prayed on by those above us. Because, like I said, we're not voting, we're not picking, we are ultimately providing feedback because obviously the people in the Archdiocese, they don't know Lions. They don't, the English band comes here once or twice a year for confirmation, but even he doesn't get a final say. He's part of the committee that Father and Sue will present to, but other than that, they need our feedback because they don't live here. They don't live here, so they need to hear our voices and what we think and if we have information that they have, there's only 5 of us, and we don't know everything, so that's why we need you to kind of fill in the holes of things we didn't think of or we didn't, know.
I'll have that too.
In your notes, why don't you please put, they don't have Father Robert.
I have a comment, me, Celeste, hi. I don't know if I'm beating a dead horse, but I kind of go along with what Jackie said about the economic disparities of these different parishes. Isn't it kind of very unfair to compare what a parish like St. Mary's or Monte Christi could make versus our parish based on their different neighborhoods? Our parishioners can't donate as much as those parishes could.
That comment was made in our meetings, and we will reiterate it again. We said it then, and part of it was is they did, I mean, obviously, what they look at is, everybody knows every year we have the annual Catholic campaign, right? So we get a goal, do we reach the goal? What is our capacity to fundraise, something like that? And those are some of the numbers that they look at, and obviously St. Mary's has a bigger number. I mean, even if you look at their October count, it is larger than ours, so they are drawing from more people. So there's a lot of factors, but we did raise that point, and we will bring it up again, that it was raised, because there's so many things, we don't have answers, we just can take your words and, put exclamation points on them. Okay, Cliff?
Thank you. Good evening, Clifford Bureau. Just a comment on this one. I like this scenario because basically it keeps all churches open. Only thing I'm not too keen on is the fact that probably pastors will be working extra overtime to accommodate both St. Louis and St. Pius. I know that Father Robert may be used at St. Pius because there's no current pastor there at this particular time, just to fill in. Personally speaking, I know the bottom line is that this is not what we're talking about. Our archdiocese already made their decision. They just want to hear our feedback, honestly. And I think because of the monetary restraints and the budget of $750,000, what we should do is basically combine both parishes. St. Pius should combine with St. Hugh, as well as St. Mary combine with Monte Christi, just to alleviate some of that deficit that we're having right now. Because honestly, this pandemic hurt everybody in general, so we're all hurting financially because of this pandemic. So it makes a lot of sense for us to combine, just to keep all churches open. But in terms of the future ahead, I think that the Archdiocese of Chicago should sell some of their properties, if it comes to it. Where we, as St. Hugh, we can sell the gymnasium. We can also even probably consider down the line selling Keaton Hall, if everything works well with selling of the gymnasium as first option. And then in terms of Archdiocese, they have residences, like Cardinal George's residence on North State Street and Wells. Hasn't been utilized since 2015. That's a place that can be sold for a pretty big portion, a substantial amount, as well as some of the land they have out on the South Holland end of the borderline between Indiana and Illinois. They have a lot of land. They also have residences that are not being occupied at this particular time. As I mentioned, Cardinal George's residence has been empty since 2015. It's just there. I was hoping that Casa Jesus might be able to take over, but that's $1 million property right there that they can sell.
And ultimately,
Thank you.
That's something way beyond this. The one thing that if you go, so what I printed that was in the bulletin was just kind of like the top line. On the website it's posted is the whole scenario written out with more details. The concern with this scenario is that if you were to look at, and the other document is also on the website, it's the parish data, that with our October count combined with St. Pius's October count, we come very close, we're just over that 800. So again, are we going to be able to maintain that benchmark? And then that $750,000 that a parish needs for its operating budget, the numbers somehow got messed up and we were right there, but now they're showing them as not, but St. Pius, it was their numbers that there was a mix-up, so now they're saying they're not, but St. Pius is trying to say like, no, wait, so they're having them relook at the numbers. So that is the one concern about that is they feel that St. Mary Monte Christi is viable. They're not sure if the St. Hugh St. Pius is viable. And
we don't need the numbers, they're just worried that they're close numbers.
Right, they're too close.
This is just a response for that they're not sure that we're viable. But as we've already said, they don't know our people. They don't know our people or Pius's people personally. They don't know what we're willing to do, or they might not think we're viable, but they can't be sure of that. So why not give us even a chance to see? And yeah, we don't want to do this in 3 years, but if they're not willing to even make it a possibility and see, who knows?
I have a Facebook comment. Georgina Lee asked, is there federal funding or a grant that we can get?
No.
More likely, the federal government would not help any nonprofit organization, especially the Catholic Church. This year was different with the pandemic. Some churches got help, but it was just one time, and it wasn't that much anyway in the long run. But there's a separation between church and state, and it's a very big one. There are some countries that have that omitted sometimes, but recently in this country, I don't see it. Maybe it will happen if people vote, but as of today, no. Sorry.
Any other comments, questions, challenges?
There's just a Facebook comment that I saw. So, Marge Cleveland says, I think the best scenario would be to combine with St. Pius. We could maybe have a Spanish Mass with them, and we could have our gym. We could still sell the school, which we would then have more parking.
Any other comments, questions? So I'm just going to read through the slides. It's died on me up here. So obviously this process has been going on for many months, and we've been sharing with you every time we get a piece of information. We've been sharing it, and we continue to ask you all to share thoughts. We know that not everybody right now is going to think of everything. You know what I mean? You've all just been emailed this or received this in the bulletin within the last 3 days, because we emailed it out at noon on Thursday, so we've only had it for a short amount of time to think on it and pray on it. And so what we're asking our team, what we need is your thoughts, honest opinions, good, bad, and different, so that we can present them, because this is our chance to have our voices heard as the people of St. Hugh, but not just of St. Hugh, because we really are one church. We're one church, and so we have to think forward to that. But we also have to think about what's best for our local community as well. How can we serve church, but also serve community? You know what I mean? So that we don't lose. So it's something we've all been struggling with, trying to wrap our minds around.
But the trick is we also need to serve St. Hugh.
Right. We have to figure out how to serve both, and I think that's our biggest struggle. I mean, we've talked through these meetings and left the meetings kind of in ups and downs. You know, we've had some that went where we were like, okay, you know, this is positive. We can come out the other end that, right, we know we're going to change, but it doesn't need to, it might not be something that we can't live with, right? Because we know we have to change. It's change or die, right? We have to change. But now, you know, then we've had some more recent meetings that we did not necessarily come out of with that, you know, they were hard meetings. And ultimately, we need you to kind of help feed us what we need to say to them.
I think lots of things have been said, and I don't know who else wants to say anything more.
No, but if you think of something, please call Father, call me, or catch any of us in church and tell us, and we will make note of it. And like I said, we will take your words, your thoughts, and share them, because ultimately that's our role. I'm just going to read the last slides. It says part of this is, you know, our grouping's realities. What are they? We have to, you know, there's significant population and ethnic demographic changes in our grouping. Our parish's mass attendance and sacraments have significantly dropped. And this isn't just St. Hugh, this is all 4 parishes in the grouping. The church and school operating incomes and expenses, and school and religious education enrollments, and the building conditions and affordability. So these are some of the things that we've been looking at. So we have to think about, so again, think about this and share it with us in any way you feel most comfortable. Call us, email us, write us a note.
I'll just make a little comment. I have a friend who is a practicing Jew, and it's been back, I met her about 78, I guess it was. And she made the comment to me a long time ago. She always kind of liked the Catholic Church because we do renew and change and look at things occasionally and as to how things are going. Thank you.
So just to finish up, it says, think about which scenario best addresses the particular needs of our grouping, and why. Which scenario least addresses the particular needs, and then what do we consider the biggest potential challenge facing and implementing these. Like I said, please think about it, pray about it. Let us know in any way you feel comfortable. If you don't want to put a name on it, like I said, there's the online form, drop something in the collection basket, don't put your name on it. It doesn't matter, however you want to do it, please let us know, because ultimately, we want your voice heard, and we need it.
There's a comment.
I'm very connected to St. Hugh. I've been going for 50 years, since 1971. And I hate to see St. Hugh come up as a condo, because that's all lines that are built when they have space, is condos. And if I have to go by this church as a condo, I'm going to be really upset. I thought I'd be buried here, but obviously I'm not. Because I think that the diocese, the archdiocese, just wants to close the churches and do whatever they want with them. They just wanted to close them. And I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but that's their goal, is to close. And the ones that don't make it, in their opinion, are the ones that closed. I remember there was a church in Chicago where they raised thousands of dollars. The church was falling apart. It was a beautiful church. And they raised, I don't know how much, $40,000, $50,000 to keep that church open, and it closed. So I say, if we gave them $50,000, they still would close our church. I'm sorry, that's the way I feel. That's the way I feel. And I resent them not letting me be buried here. I'm sorry for being so negative.
Does anybody else have any comments?
Hi, it's Celeste again. I guess going forward, is there plans for the archdiocese on like how to get more parishioners? How? Because I mean, like I'm 28 years old. Of all my friends, I'm the only friend who consistently goes to church.
So when they said that this was structural along with spiritual, obviously right now we're handling the structural piece, but in the second half of Renew My Church, that's when they're really supposed. That's the plan of it is to the next step. But they're addressing this piece because obviously financially it's the issue. So I mean that is something that they recognize, and as best that they've communicated it to us, that it is something that's in the next piece that we go through that is supposed to address that there has to be radical evangelization, radical hospitality. I mean, these are things that some of the other denominations are doing better than us, and we need to do better. And I think we went through, what's the name of the book, Father? That we had to all read, divine renovation. So there's a whole piece to this that we haven't even gotten to yet. So this is just the first piece of it. So
this is only an introduction, basically. It's very advanced introduction, but nothing has been decided yet. And figure out how everything will be presented to the current board. He's going to lead us in prayer, and as soon as he's done,
Does anybody else have any other comments or questions? If not, I'm going to ask Father to end in prayer.
Please do not leave yet the church after the prayer. We have a few things to talk to you about. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Let's ask the Lord for the protection, for security for the future. Let's ask the Lord who guided the chosen nation to the Red Sea, to the new place. Many hours will be as safe and as comfortable and as blessed. As we pray together, the prayer Jesus gave us. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Amen. In the Father,